This
Sorry,
conference will now be recorded.
I didn't see that the thing was being recorded.
No problem. So yeah, under cooling environments, we have 5 sub-projects. The door heat exchanger led by John Fernandez, the cold plate by Jordan Johnson, immersion by Rolf and John Bean, advanced cooling facilities with John Manosh and John Gross, and heat reuse with Cosimo and Jaime. We'll get a little overview from the various sub-projects following this overview. And you get a chance to get to know the various leads. The overall project focus, I think most folks here know, is to standardize and define some of the critical interfaces in the data center, specific to cooling, standardization of operational parameters, as well as the environmental conditions. And from there, I think we can jump to our first sub-project highlight, which is immersion cooling.
So, Rolf, are you on the call, or
Yes, I am, but I see that you missed this slide in updating, so I'll quickly pull up my version of the stack, if you don't mind.
well, I added this slide, but I didn't update the other one. So sorry about that.
Exactly. No worries. I'll just take the screen for a second. Here we go. So yeah, thanks for the floor. I hope you can see the whole screen. There's this GoToMeeting window in my way, but perfect. So yeah, there's quite a bit of news. So compared to the in relation to the previous all hands call here for the cooling environments project, there's been sort of quite a bit of progress. We have now officially announced that we have 2 industry liaisons to facilitate harmonization between OCP work efforts and the global standards body IEC. Those industry liaisons are currently John Bean and myself as immersion project leads, and this is quite relevant because we're also going to be able to harmonize other items within the open compute, a broader community with IEC where those are needed. The next thing, which is also part of the news, is that we've now completed a new fluid-based spec, which has been green-lighted for submission. It's been contributed by Intel. We spent the last couple of months on harmonizing this contribution with the material compatibilities white paper, which is coming out any second now, and the existing immersion requirements. And it's a very fundamental piece of work. It now opens the door on standardization of immersion fluids, which is a major step for the immersion industry. And we finally have a common frame of reference to test equipment and materials against. There is also a lot of new activities that we're currently kicking off, and we're going to need help with that. So anyone in this community who would like to become part of this, of the immersion group, we'd love to get your participation on this. 3 work streams that we're kicking off that we're currently scoping out and have in the incubator process, which is the IT equipment warranty guidelines, signal integrity, and TCO modeling for immersion. The warranty guidelines should contribute to the enablement of warranty within immersion fluids. Signal integrity is going to be focusing on a very explicit technical element regarding high-speed communication within immersion environments. And the TCO modeling is aimed at helping to evangelize and increase the understanding industry-wide of, hey, how can immersion be so cost-effective, even though it's so much more expensive than a 19-inch rack, right? So to help people with the insight, what is that business case around immersion? Finally, there's a couple of new focus groups which are currently allocated under the immersion requirements team. One of those is a very short-term and brief evaluation of the NFPA standards. There is an opening to provide input. This is about fire standards. NFPA stands for National Fire Protection Agency. And they're open for comments that we're hoping to provide before February. And we're going to be focusing on audio ignition temperature for immersion fluids to evaluate the current references of 300 degrees C and see whether that can be lowered while remaining within safety bounds. So I'm going to wrap up with this overview. This is the immersion project at this point in time. It's one of the most active communities in open compute, one of the broadest communities. We have a very, very good group of people that are very capable of contributing and working together. I'm very proud of this immersion community, which consists of competitors and integrators and vendors and suppliers alike, all collaborating to make a huge difference in the industry. On the right side, you see the immersion incubator where we're doing these new work efforts. But every one of these groups, every one of these work streams has leadership as well, which is passionately taking a lot of these work products forward. So we'd love to see your support and adoption of the work that is being progressed and being done. And I'll hand over back to Son right now.
Thanks,
I'll
Rolf.
take it back real quick. But first off, Rolf, I'd like to thank you for what your program specifically is doing. The future of immersion cooling is greatly tied into the success of OCP. If we cannot get standardization of the and approval of immersion cooling, well, as we get standardization, as we deploy, there's a lot of future that's happening. I'd also like to apologize that we're actually holding this call right during the middle of Supercompute 22, which is a popular gathering of most of the immersion cooling community, or much of the immersion cooling community, and many of those may not be able on the call because of that. But moving on into door heat exchangers, Sean, do you want to introduce that, or do you?
No, John said, could you move to slide 10, Don?
Just a second here.
And then go full screen as well.
Okay, and are we seeing it?
We're on your slideshow mode.
Yeah, display settings on the top.
Yeah, I know. I'm just, hold on a second.
You can do it from there.
There we go. Does that look?
You're not sharing anymore.
I'm not sharing anymore. This is just hold on a second here. I will. Share. And
all right, thanks guys. I'm dropping off.
okay.
Good luck with the call.
Let me try this one more time.
If not, then we can stay in this mode. It's fine.
Yeah, perfect from there. Yeah.
Are we seeing it now?
Yeah, that's great.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Go ahead, John.
Thanks. Hey everyone, my name is John Fernandez. I'm a thermal engineer in Meta's platform hardware team, and I support the door heat exchanger sub project. So just some quick updates. We have a checklist that's complementary to the requirements document that's in the contribution portal. And actually, since the global summit, we have one vendor trying to contribute their products in compliance with this checklist. And I believe Mark Dancy from the OCP Ready stream is coordinating that effort, so glad to see that. In terms of the reservoir and pumping unit specification, this is all about enabling air-assisted liquid cooling or liquid cooling in air-cooled facilities. And this was presented at the November incubation committee meeting. And I believe this should be ready for contribution pretty soon. In terms of the white paper evaluating limits of door heat exchanger solutions in different applications, this week we released the draft for or the authors to do a final set of reviews. We'll be looking to open it up to our peers in the cooling environments track to get some feedback and then finalize the document for contributions. But that's coming soon as well. Is it just me, or is there some sort of echo or interference on the call?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, could everyone else mute?
Well, I tried muting. Is that better?
I think if we could mute everyone except John, that'd be great, John.
Okay. That would have.
I actually think it's John because it happens only when he talks.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Oh
maybe-
man, I was so sure it was someone else. All right, I'm almost done. Let me keep going. So, as highlighted at the global summit, we're looking for interested parties or end users to help drive or define door heat exchanger specification for OpenRack v3. We do have really good attendance or contribution from the vendors, but it's important to see interest from end users in order to enable such contributions. So, this is just an appeal to those on the call. If you really like the fact that OpenRack v3 has liquid cooling capabilities integrated and would love to see a door heat exchanger as part of that so you can 100% liquid cool your IT hardware, please come talk to us. We'd be happy to kick this off and make this happen. Similarly, we have preliminary discussions with the sustainability and ACS cold plate projects with a focus on circular economy and sustainability with hybrid solutions. So that's door heat exchanger with cold plates to create 100% liquid cooled hardware. We're still in preliminary discussions, and as things develop, we'll be happy to share more information. But if there is interest in this area as well, please come either reach out to me or Jordan Johnson. And just a quick reminder, the door heat exchanger sub-project has bi-weekly calls on Thursdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I acknowledge that the door heat exchanger solution isn't as cutting edge as some of the other areas. If the community sees greater interest in case studies and white papers, we would love to hear about that. Like, for example, we've had folks from the DCF team asking about doing some case studies to talk about how door heat exchangers could be implemented. So if that is the sort of appetite that the community has, the door heat exchanger community can certainly pivot and ensure that we are contributing what matters to the general community out there. So thank you. And moving on to Jordan.
Thanks, John. Jordan, sorry, Don, could you move to the next slide? Jordan, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, and Don, could you try and mute as well, and I'll try to see if we can reduce that echo. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, thank you. So I'm Jordan Johnson. I'm a mechanical engineer at Intel in the data center group, and I'm the sub-project lead on cold plate within OCP. So listed here are just some of the really kind of community-led discussions of, as John was kind of mentioning on the rear door heat exchanger side. There's also people that will come with other contributions through cold plate, sharing their knowledge or working with other companies to show either a case study or a standard, and that's something that's really valuable in this cold plate community because it is a technology that's been around, but there's a lot of information that just isn't known by the broader community. So that being said, to quickly go over kind of the ongoing community-led discussions, the first one here is the cold plate requirements revision 2. So this is taking the first revision, updating it with the current template, and really trying to pull in all the most, best known methods, the most recent standards into this document and pointing to other OCP contributions. So if you or your company you want to share your expertise on this work stream, we definitely would value that. we have a pretty good draft now, but want to make sure we're capturing everything that falls within this cold plate requirements. And that being said, too, we've since the summit, we've had a couple different technologies come forward in this work stream, and it's generating additional conversations and additional contributions to make sure that we can capture any technology that is around that, cold plate cooling. Another work stream is the fluid loop work stream. So this is specifically just published 2 contributions on fluid serviceability and maintenance for PG25 and treated water. And then now that that's contributed, it's up on the OCP contribution portal. Their next step is looking at developing guidance on testing for material compatibility specifically in a data center. There's also a currently closed work stream, but Glenn Charest is leading this work stream on blind mate connectors specifically for the ORV3 rack. And then, like John was mentioning, upcoming looking at circular economy and sustainability. And I think this is going to be a big area, just sustainability in general, as it's a new tenant for OCP. And the sustainability group is definitely going to be looking for subject matter experts to contribute on ways that we can increase sustainability within cold plate. So if anyone has any ideas there, we'd love to talk to you, get those ideas, look at how we can contribute to that. We do meet monthly, second Thursday each month, and then in addition, these work streams meet usually bi-weekly.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, that's what I got. Yeah, we'd love to connect. You can go to our wiki, get my email, and get you hooked into wherever makes the most sense.
Yeah, thanks for that, John. Don, do we want to move on to the next?
Yeah, but before I do, real quick, one thing I would like to highlight is these QR codes actually work. So if you are trying to find the calendars, each one of the groups that we're talking about, and we're going to show QR codes at the end, so you can go there, or you can just go to the Open Compute webpage and see calendars of events for the cooling environments. We'll cover that a little bit more later. But up next, I got to juggle screens here. Cosimo, and Jaime, are you available to talk about the heat reuse?
Yes, and since I think I did the last review, maybe Jaime, you want to do it this time?
Okay, I do it, no problem. So this is actually I'm Jaime Comella, and Cosimo Piccioli is also on the call. He just talked. We are co-leading the heat reuse workstream. We are actually talking about heat reuse data in the data center, and we are talking about all the ways, all the challenges, all the opportunities that the heat reuse is bringing to this world. So what do we do actually there? We have a lot of guest presenters. Actually, the last call, we have bi-weekly calls every two weeks. Last call was on Tuesday, and we had a presenter. It was M&M Carnot. They presented how they actually do heat reuse using CO2 chillers. Very interesting. And 2 weeks before that, we had Quantum Loop Hall, so presenting their huge hyper scale project with heat reuse concepts. So we have regularly guest presenters presenting their use cases, usually successful, but we also accept unsuccessful use cases, guys. So don't be afraid, just come by and show us your use cases. What we do as well, we are actually working in the guideline Beyond PUE Global Opportunities for Heat Reuse. We are actually pre-advanced, but still we need collaboration from you guys. So you're more than welcome to comment on the guideline. Actually, you have access to the guideline in our wiki page, just pasted that, but after that, there is a slide with a QR code. As Don said, they work. We're also working on a white paper, a very short version of that guideline. It's called the Heat Reuse 101. This is almost finished, and we will release it soon. Yeah, this is our goal is by the end of the year. And we're also working on a map, on a heat reuse world map. It's more than 25% advanced, I would say. This is an old figure. We have a lot of use cases already in that map, a lot of dots, a lot of blue dots. Meaning a lot of projects around the world. So please, you're more than welcome to present ourselves your projects. You can skip 2 slides. We can show that map. Done. two slides.
Yeah, the next one.
It,
Don, you are
I
muted.
know.
Okay.
I got to tell you, it's kind of a wonderful challenge going from mute to 3 different screens on it.
Multitasking.
So there
Yeah,
you
that
go.
one. That's the map. Perfect. Thanks. So you see all blue dots. There is also a red dot. That's a project that not finished yet. It's still a project. We also accept projects. So please, if you have a project for future use that is not being established yet, also more than welcome. And we want actually to enrich this map and bring as much information as possible. In the chat, I have pasted a bullet points list with the information we would love to have from you. We want to give visibility to this and help to share the word. Because we have something to add.
No, I think you did an excellent job. As Jaime was saying, we had a list. So we tried to draw conclusions based on real experiences. So we had a lot of presenters with real cases and word. But as Jaime said, we welcome even challenges that didn't actually pan out because we want to learn from mistakes. So, or challenges that you are facing right now, and maybe you're on the fence whether to implement Hit Reuse or not, what considerations you are going through. This is something that probably we can be helpful with our group. That's it.
Thanks.
Well, first off, I'd like to say thank you again to this group because the sustainability aspect of our world is definitely driving data center construction a whole lot more than ever before, as it should. And we came upon this because we found out that when we started looking at liquid cooling, the opportunities increased for heat reuse. But I'd like to add, just this past week, I was at the supercompute and ran into someone associated with the Bitcoin industry. And the Bitcoin industry is the at risk for being viewed as being a sustainability sinkhole, as is the data center industry. But they actually have a case that we'll probably be adding in the future where across Canada, the Bitcoin miners are partnering with local communities and taking their waste heat and actually having people appreciate them being in the neighborhood versus wonder why they're there. And the key concept here is energy is not consumed. It can be reused, and it's just more of a mental thought process to get us going there. And we definitely want to promote this. And I'd like to give a big shout out to Jaime because his very last name is Cloud and Heat. Okay. So, I mean, the whole organization, the focus of we got a company that's enabled there. And actually, I'm going to transition to our next discussion, which is, I believe, if I can get this thing working here, advanced cooling facilities. And this is the, for explanation, advanced cooling facilities was started up about 2 years ago to look at how do you add liquids in operating data centers? What can we do to prepare people for data centers in the future? I was at Data Center Dynamics a week or so ago, and there was a debate on, are we using liquids today as much, and when will we be using liquids? And at the end of the presentation, I just put up my hand and said, who here is building a data center that's only going to last 5 years? And the answer to that is virtually nobody, okay? And so if you're building a data center that's going to last more than 5 years, you actually have to make plans to add liquid someday in the future. And that's what this group is all about. The Advanced Cooling Facilities is looking at that. We've already published work streams on reference designs and best practices. We are probably going to make revisions to those. The ACF team is also published on connection standardization or recommendations for how to connect liquids in data centers, and also the risk factors associated with each connection method. And as a recurring topic, we're constantly looking at how can the ACF solution set advance use of heat reuse, and that's where the heat reuse sub-project started. Current work streams that we're doing right now, there's concurrent maintainability considerations in terms of liquid cool IT has a different footprint, a different aspect of current maintainability. And I'd like to highlight that we're doing this in partnership with the Uptime Institute. Anyone who says concurrent maintainability Generally speaking, Uptime Institute has been a leader in the thought process around concurrent maintainability for decades. And one of the key things I'd like to highlight is OCP is not trying to create guidance independent of others. We're trying to create guidance in cooperation with other programs. So we're reaching out to ASHRAE, we're reaching out to the Green Grid, we're reaching out and making sure that our recommendations, and to the infrastructure masons, that are consistent here. Another work stream that is discussed and actually was mentioned to me at Supercompute 22. I was walking the floor. There's a lot of CDUs, coolant distribution units on the floor. But each coolant distribution unit has a function that ties in with concurrent maintainability. If the CDU doesn't work, then your liquid doesn't work. So you have to somehow make sure that you have contingency plans for that. Do you do with external redundancy, internal redundancy, or do you have other maintenance modes, if you will? And then service level agreements is an area that needs development, because when you have a colo or a tenant host um, that is trying to define who owns the responsibility for the call it the cold plate, and the industry is looking for maybe a standardized approach. We are not necessarily going to be generating a standardized approach. The first thing we're going to be doing is creating work streams that identify the key considerations, and from that, we may or may not be sponsoring a standardized recommendation. Hold on a second here. Have to turn that off. So, example of the papers we've done recently, we had the data center liquid distribution guidance and best practices. And one thing I'd like to highlight here is you have some authors of this paper, and but you also have a lot of contributors. And what we're looking at here is, as a community, we want to have our papers have a large number of contributors, a large number of reviewers. And the opportunity to contribute is very simple. You can go down, take a look at the paper, participate in discussions, and we will add names of the member organizations, especially, to these papers. One of the case studies that brings us all together, and we're going to be talking about this more on the next call, but I'm just going to introduce it right now. Wyoming Hyperscale White Box is a great example of every aspect of cooling environments comes to play in this discussion. And what is really neat is the organization has participated as members, and the key engineers have participated as members of OCP. And what does that mean? It means that we have a 30 megawatt data center being planned and will be built here in Southeast Wyoming. It's going to be using liquid cooled ITE. So and when I say liquid cooled, primarily immersion cooling, but they are also putting in considerations for or the ability to add cold plate and door heat exchangers. It's also going to be reusing the heat. In essence, a 30-acre greenhouse is going to be powered from or heated from a 30 megawatt data center. And every practice, every aspect of open compute cooling environments comes into play on this project. It's a perfect case study project in place. And one of the things it does bring into the concept is that we're moving more toward not data centers, but we'll call them hyperscale sustainable data center ecosystems. A data center is not going to be just a box. It's going to be an integration in our community. You're going to see more of these in organizations like Quantum Loophole, which is building 2,400 acres in Maryland, and they have told me that they are going to be doing a much larger project, a project much larger than 2,400 acres in California sometime in the near future. So let me pause for a second here. And is there any input from the attendees and audience? Any thoughts? Anyone want to speak out? we've covered a lot of ground. And kind of moving on this Wyoming hyperscale white box, I'll cover this a little bit more. What you're looking at here, again, is a data center which is looking at uptime tier 3 design. So we are partnering with the uptime on this project. We're looking at a PUE of around 1.08 with a 0 water usage, no refrigerant on site. We're using solar and renewable energy wherever possible. There's a chance in the near future they may actually be adding a nuclear power plant to this location. And we're using heat recovery from indoor produce, as well as we're using a geothermal. There's a lot of cutting edge thought processes here that are coming together to create an ecosystem. I'm going to kind of transition here, and Sean, I don't know if you have any insights or not, but I'd like to talk about a little bit about what it takes to participate. And traditional participation has been creation of specs and design files and product recognition, but we're moving toward a lot of other contributions in terms of people contributing their, in some cases, their IP, their contributing white papers. I was talking to an organization yesterday that said they already had a white paper, and I said, well, would you like to have that republished with OCP and maybe have us reissue that on CDUs, for example? Sean, any comments that you'd like to jump in, or anyone else want to throw in on this right now?
Thanks, Don. Yeah, I think we would really like to encourage the community bringing in the case studies, like we saw the Wyoming hyperscale. Also helping the community with understanding locations where heat reuse is coming up. Those are really, we rely on the community a lot to bring in their insight. And I think in general, collaborating with the various sub-projects on white papers is a space that we get great response from, but we would like to continue for 2023 and hope to see a lot of cross-community collaborations for our white papers between subjects like sustainability, cold plate immersion, door heat exchanger heat reuse, and ACF. And I think that's really where we want to go forward into 2023.
Okay, so going back, and one of the things I am going to do is I'm going to see if I can, well, we'll go back here. These are, how do you participate? You can, one of the key things to do is to get on mailing lists, because otherwise you just are randomly linked by us thinking of you, and that doesn't always happen consistently. So subscribe to mailing lists. That also will give you access and notification on the calendars, which we mentioned before. Each of these projects here have their own mailing list: the advanced cooling facilities, the heat reuse sub-project, immersion sub-project, cold plate, door heat exchangers. We also would like to highlight that there's some related projects to some of the things we do. I know OCP, they're all related, but in particular, the sustainability project is something that closely relates to the discussions we're having. And there is a data center facility project, which is looking at the data center as a whole. And at one time, cooling environments was fell under that, or some parts of cooling environments. But the growth and attention of just the cooling world had us pull out as a separate project, but we're still closely related. And under this data center facility project, they have opportunities for modular data centers and participation there. For those that didn't actually write down the email addresses or the correction URLs, we're reposting them here. You can scan these, and they should take you straight to the site of interest, and you can register now. We are constantly looking for people to, if you have an area of interest and passion, either become part of an existing work stream or take a leadership role as a leader in a new work stream. So kind of going through here, the getting involved process. First off is join, enroll in the mailing lists, and attend project calls, the ones that you're interested in. Drive, you add project focus, thought leadership. We're looking for project leaders and technical steering committee. In many cases, we'll have community calls that cover, say, what the ACF is doing every other week. They have a community call. Every other week, all the units have some sort of community calls, but then they also have private calls where they actually get work done, so they can share those on the with their work streams. So those private calls are something that you can attend, but we are looking for people that specifically want to contribute. So that kind of it is, and I think we ripped through this rather quickly, but is there anything people want to go back and take a look at? And I'll talk about what the next next quarter's call is going to be focusing on. Questions or comments?
Well, the only comment
Hey,
is
Don,
Go ahead.
the heat reuse map is really, really cool. It's so cool that you guys made it visual.
Well, thank you, sweetie. I really
thank you.
Thanks.
go back to this. It's a work in progress. I think there's a
Yeah.
whole lot more dots on this map that we don't know about. I think the map would become a blur if we had a dot for every area that heat reuse is happening.
Well,
But
we
thanks for the
wish.
shout out.
We wish, but the QR code that you have in the screen right now actually works and brings you to the latest updated version. And we keep adding projects literally every day. There's always someone who sends out a message, hey, you missed this project, you missed my project. So if you know about projects, please let us know, because we know that we are not comprehensive. Absolutely.
Other comments?
This is Ken Horner with ACOM. Curious, do any of those dots there have anything to do with wastewater reuse, beneficial reuse for heat?
So if you click in every dot, there's either a link to their website or an article about that project. As by memory, I would say not that I remember. Jaime.
No, there is no.
No.
There is no. But it's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, keeping data centers, keeping those little bacteria happy, right? Keep them warm.
I mean, we know that it's one of the potential use, but we don't want to monopolize this conversation. I mean, join our calls bi-weekly and we can talk about that.
Great.
Well, I would like to dive into that a little bit, because one of the things, Ken, I do appreciate you. You're from AECOM, and AECOM is a great example. One of the things we are looking at doing is expanding our community to include resources that actually can input. When I say that, 11 years ago, Open Compute Project was all about racks and stuff inside the racks. And as we start looking at ecosystems, we need community experts like AECOM to participate, because your organization, you have people that are experts in data centers, but you also, by coincidence, I sat next to a guy who's from AECOM who was doing the blue line, I think, for in Virginia. But to your point, and maybe you could pull back a little bit on the concept of integration with wastewater treatment, because I think AECOM does wastewater treatment facilities, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the basic idea is that in certain circumstances, particularly in cold weather environments, that the bacteriological processes that are happening at wastewater treatment plants are benefited by being warmer. The bacteria literally just are more productive. So that might be a beneficial reuse case.
Yeah, and we look at that, and actually the temperatures are perfectly aligned with what we can provide. So that would be a perfect combination. So if you can join our group, absolutely, I'm sure you would add value.
And let me add something, because we had also a guest presenter who presented a project or an idea, a concept of combining wastewater treatment and heat reuse. So there's also a presentation uploaded if you want to have a look to that, and let us know what you think and what you believe, and we'll be grateful about your opinions.
But Ken, kind of pulling this a little bit further, I know that Quantum Loophole, for example, that project in Maryland, I've talked to the leadership there, and we're trying to bring them in on this, because they are making a 2,400 acre community in Maryland, and I'm pretty sure they are planning on using waste heat there for water treatment. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
water treatment aspects from a paper on desalination and other applications. That's why I pulled up this screen. There's a lot of places where you can use waste heat, especially when the waste heat, you brought up a great one because it's close to the right temperature in terms of your standard waste heat from a data center is somewhere around 30 degrees centigrade or maybe a little bit more. But when you have liquid cooling, the potential of 140 degree waste heat is there. But Ken, I'll throw the mic back to you. Any comments?
No, that sounds great. I'm looking forward to joining that heat reuse work group. And I think you're absolutely right, Don, that AECOM's got a wide variety of different subject matter experts, from transportation to environmental to energy, and there's some overlap, and particularly on these beneficial reuse. I mean, of course, all of our clients are looking for more sustainable opportunities to operate in whatever space they're in. And we've got a large heat source here that we can use beneficially. We'd be glad to discuss what those opportunities might be.
I just sent you a LinkedIn request.
All right.
Okay.
Great.
So we'll kind of go back here to the and one thing I would like to highlight is next quarter's call. What can we do to make these calls more productive? And actually, next quarter will be, at the very least, it's going to be a deep dive case study review, or include part of the call will be including a review of this. And the Wyoming Hyperscale White Box, we're going to get the CFO speaking on that. And this is an example of a case study that the owner, or the principal founder, has been 20 years a CFO, chief financial officer. He wants to do the right thing, but he doesn't believe in nonprofit or unprofitable businesses. Okay, being a sustainable, unprofitable business is not a business model. And so he actually has a great breakdown on why it makes financial sense to do heat reuse, why it makes financial sense to use liquid cooling, why it makes financial sense and carbon offset to ship produce from Evanston down to Salt Lake City than from California, where you might be having a drought across a set of mountains to Salt Lake City. So there's a financial aspect, and as we look at being financially sustainable, as well as globally sustainable, working those two together is going to be a key aspect of next quarter's call, which will be in February. And we may also have some people contributing. I know there's been some industry news around organizations that have recently adopted cooling as their primary method, liquid cooling as their primary method. And that will be a topic for next month as well. Any other questions or comments? Anyone want to jump in? So one thing I want to do a quick shout out, there was a little bit intro, the invites were kind of confused this time. I made a mistake earlier today. I found out about it 3 minutes or 5 minutes before the call. Hopefully you all were able to clarify that and join, but next quarter in February, we'll be having this update again. But between now and then, we still have a lot of time left in the year to contribute to advance white papers and advance the industry. And I would also tell you that everywhere I go, I'm getting more and more feedback and excitement about what Advanced Cooling, the Cooling Environments Project, is doing to enable the success of the data center industry going forward. We are making a difference. This is an opportunity for everyone here to be contribute to making a difference and to gain a little fame. You have your name put on a white paper or become a work stream lead for something that is an industry changing world or group. So, Sean, I'm going to hand it off to you if there's anything you want to close up with.
No, thanks, Don. I think that covers most of it. Really want to encourage folks to attend the various sub-project meeting calls and obviously these community discussions. Please do reach out to the project leads, use the QR codes. The more community interaction we can get, the more cross-pollination of some of these ideas across the cooling environments project, and I think the better for the community in general. So look forward to hearing from you all.
All righty. Well, with that, I'm going to turn off. I'm going to try to figure out how to turn off the mic. I got 3 screens going for me here. I don't know if you realize that, but it's jumping from one to the other. So